had to sit out conference championship weekend. It was no fun watching Oregon and Penn State battle for a conference title, but now Ohio State's back in action. The college football playoff bracket was revealed. Ohio State is the 8th seed. They were 6th overall in the rankings, but they sit there as the 8th seed. All in all, 4 Big Ten teams get in. And, I thought the way they set up the bracket was really interesting, Garrison. I kind of want to hear your thoughts on how the committee did in general, Ohio State's seeding, and where you think the committee went right and where you think they went wrong.
Yeah. So, first off, I think first off, there has to be a change in the seeding. Usually when you're the number 1 seed, your path isn't the hardest. It's not supposed to be the hardest, right?
Yeah.
And so for Oregon, they get to face off whether it be Tennessee or Ohio State. That's not easy. And then, off the back of that, you would assume they have Penn State, and then that leads to Penn State and them having SMU after losing the Big Ten championship, and then possibly, I think we would all assume, playing Boise State.
Yeah.
I think that definitely has to change. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about this over the last, 24 hours or so, 36 hours. So, coming into this year, I don't think anyone thought that there was going to be a G6 school coming in and getting one of those top 4 seeds. I think everyone thought, a P4 school was going to be easily get one of the top 4 seeds, just because we've seen that year in, year out. That kind of college football is just those teams play better. Those teams have a higher level of competition, so they get more respect. I'm okay with how everything worked out in terms of the top 4 seeds. I think Boise State, based on what we've seen, I think they deserve that 3rd seed. I definitely think they did things right by giving Arizona State that 4th seed as opposed to Clemson, getting that final seed. But I'm kind of in agreement with you in terms of needing to reseed and maybe needing to rethink those automatic conference bye week champions. Right. Just because, again, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Oregon, as the number 1 undefeated team in the country, took care of their business. They're the only undefeated team here, in the playoff, and they are rewarded by taking on the winner of Ohio State and Tennessee. And a lot of people think Ohio State's got one of the most talented rosters in the country. Yeah. So, and you also mentioned, Penn State, so you lose your conference championship game, and then you get rewarded by playing an SMU team that I don't think anyone really seems to believe in, after they lost to Clemson. And then you get to play Boise State, who really has only been tested by Oregon at Oregon early in the year. So
that's their loss is their best win.
Exactly. You could argue that they have the easiest path to making the national championship in the country. So, I see a comment here, why not reseed after every round? I don't think that's viable mainly because there's still some bowl tie-ins. Like Oregon, they're still playing in the Rose Bowl. The Big Ten and the Pac, after the dismantling of the Pac-12, the Rose Bowl still wanted to have that tie-in with the Big Ten. They still have the tie-in with the Sugar Bowl. And again, with the reseeding every round, the biggest problem with that would actually be the travel, because there's just so many different places these teams have to be. And quite frankly, this is what they've agreed to. So conferences don't get left behind. You maybe sometime in the future, the Big Ten and the SEC end up controlling this, but right now you got to make every conference commissioner happy, and this is how you do it.
Right. And then, my favorite matchup in all this is the Indiana Notre Dame one.
Oh yeah.
I am that's a couple hour drive for me. I am contemplating going to that game.
Yeah. As
that's really cool.
I was back in Indy for my dad's birthday this weekend. It was a bummer being in Indy, seeing all the Oregon and Penn State fans there. I can talk about that later, but a lot of buzz about that Notre Dame Indiana matchup back home. Oh, yeah. So you're right. That's going to be a very intriguing matchup.
Yeah, me personally, so Man, I don't even know if you know this. So, I mean, I thought I told you this before, but I went to the University of St. Francis, played football there for a couple years out in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So,
Okay.
like, this is really cool. I know a lot of IU fans. Of course, I know a lot of Notre Dame fans. But
Yeah.
I think these two have only played a few times. They
Yeah.
don't
The last
play
time
a
they
lot.
played was actually back in 1966.
That's insane.
So it's
That's
been
insane.
a while. And it's strange. You would think, being
Mhm.
in-state opponents, they would play, a little bit more often, but that hasn't been the case. Notre Dame's
Right.
played Purdue, obviously more often because there's a trophy game involved. But I think that's going to be interesting. I mean, personally, I think Notre Dame's going to win that game fairly easily.
Mhm.
I mean, you saw Indiana, and I'm gonna get your take. So were you hoping for a rematch with Ohio State and Indiana in the playoff? Because I surely was.
When I see the road that Ohio State has the hardest road to get to, possibly to get to the championship. Okay, we're talking, because at first I was against you on this. We're talking Tennessee. If you beat them, you play Oregon,
Mhm.
and then if you were to beat Oregon, the chances are you're probably going Georgia, Texas.
You're probably playing
That's
Texas. That's what you're gonna do. You're gonna play
I'm
Texas.
sorry, Texas then Georgia, Texas then Georgia.
Yeah.
If everything were to shake out that way, so hindsight's 2020. Looking back on it, Ryan, yeah, I wanted Indiana. I want Indiana. I mean, that's Ohio State has the toughest road to the national championship without question.
One of the other things I thought the committee got absolutely wrong is the
Mhm.
seeding of Penn State and Ohio State.
Oh yeah.
So Ohio State has, by this bracket, two top 10 wins, including
Hmm.
winning at Penn State. Penn State has zero top 10 wins, top 12
Yeah.
wins, with this bracket. Um, they don't even have a top 25 win. So I don't, well, actually, they did beat Illinois, so that is technically a top 25 win, but still,
Hmm.
they don't have, and they lost the head to head. Why play the games of the head to head? It's not going to matter. They have the same amount of losses.
Yep.
Yes, Ohio State's got that crappy loss against Michigan at home, but and Penn State's only losses are to Oregon and Ohio State. But
Hmm.
right there's my point. You lost to Ohio State. You lost that head to head. I thought Penn State should have dropped down. I thought, quite frankly, Penn State should have been the 8 seed. Ohio State should have been the 7 seed. And I thought Notre Dame should have been the 6 seed. That's why I thought it should have broken up. But
No, I
it
agree
is
with
what it
you.
is.
No, I completely agree with you. In my eyes, I think that people or the committee, yes, Michigan is not they're not even a good team. They are a very mediocre team. And Ohio State lost to them. That is what it is. There's other factors in that. It's the game, cool. But at some point, the wins have to matter. Ohio State has two top 10 wins. Penn State has none. Penn State lost to Ohio State at home. And it wasn't like it went down to the wire. They went up 10-0, and then they never were really in the game. They didn't score an offensive touchdown in that game.
Yeah.
So
And
I
it's
just
not like that game. It's not like that game was in September either. It
oh
was late
no,
October. It was only a few weeks
exactly.
ago.
And also, I mean, if you told me before the Penn State Oregon game that Penn State scored 37 points, I would assume they won that game, because I couldn't see that. I could never see their defense give up that many points. Well, they sure as
Yeah.
hell did. They give up 40. They did.
Yeah.
So like I think that, and I understand they don't want to penalize teams for going or losing championship games, but let's be honest here. They backing it up, and they backed in there. They didn't get there. Yes, you have to win the
They
games on your
didn't
schedule.
earn it by winning, a
No,
big game in the final weekend. Yeah.
no. And I think any Big Ten fan will tell you, I'd be pressed to say almost any football fan will tell you, Ohio State was the second best team in that conference this year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, and we can grumble